Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we are looking at a very specific and honestly a very painful transition in the manufacturing world.
Hmm.
It's that moment when you, as a machinist or an engineering student, you think you've got it all figured out.
Yeah,
You can run a three-axis mill with your eyes closed, and then bam, everything gets turned on its head. Literally. We're talking about the jump to four-axis.
it is hands down the biggest stumbling block I see.
Really?
Yeah. You spend years getting comfortable with X, Y, and Z. I mean, the logic is linear. It's safe.
Right.
And then you introduce rotation, and suddenly your whole mental map of the world just kind of breaks.
It's funny because, from the outside, it just looks like the machine is doing the same thing, just with a spinning part.
Jet.
But looking at the source material we have for today, specifically focusing on the Mastercam workflow, it seems like the physics and the math just change completely.
Well, they do. And the stakes get so much higher. In three-axis, if you make a mistake, you might scrap a part. In four-axis, if you get your clearance wrong or your feed rate wrong, you aren't just scrapping a part. You're destroying a $20,000 spindle or snapping tooling instantly.
Wow. Okay, so before we get into the horror stories, and I know we have a few, especially about inverse time, let's set the stage. Why do we even need to do this?
Good question.
I mean, three-axis mills are the workhorses. If I can make a part by just flipping it over in a vise, why would I complicate my life with a rotary table?
It really boils down to two things.
Mhm.
Cycle time and, more importantly, tolerance stacking. We call it the line of sight issue.
Line of sight.
Yeah, a standard mill can only cut what it can see from directly above.
Right, the tool just comes straight down in Z. It can't, reach around a corner.
Exactly. So if you need to machine the side of a block, you have to stop the whole program. You open the doors, you unclamp the part, clean all the chips off the jaws, which, hopefully you do perfectly,
Hopefully.
and you flip it 90 degrees, reclamp it, re-indicate your zero.
And that's where the error starts creeping in, right? It's cumulative. That's what we call stacking tolerance. Every single time a human touches that part, you introduce a little bit of error. Maybe a tiny chip gets stuck under it. Maybe you clamp it with slightly different pressure. If you have to do that 5 times to get all the sides, those tiny errors add up.
And your GD&T is just out the window.
It's gone.
Yeah.
Your geometric tolerancing is shot.
So the four-axis setup isn't just about being lazy. It's about mathematical certainty. You clamp it once, and that's it.
The part never leaves the fixture. That is the gold standard for accuracy.
Okay, let's visualize this.
Yeah.
The material breaks it down into two main categories that I think confuse a lot of people. The VMC setup and the HMC setup.
Yeah.
Let's start with the VMC,
Right.
the Vertical Machining Center. That's what you see in most trade schools, most job shops.
Yep, that's the most common entry point. You have your standard table that moves in X and Y, and the spindle moves up and down in Z.
And to make it four-axis.
You literally just bolt a rotary unit onto the table, usually on the right-hand side. And this is where that whole axis naming thing comes in. I remember learning the right-hand rule in physics. If the table is aligned along the x-axis.
Then the rotation around it is your A-axis.
So that's why you always see A on a vertical mill.
Almost always. The part is rotating around the X-axis, kind of like
Like a chicken on a rotisserie spit.
that's the perfect analogy, yes.
I love that because it also perfectly describes the limitation, right? You can reach the sides of the chicken, but you can't get to the ends where the spit is.
Precisely. You still have blind spots where the fixture's holding it, but you get 4 faces of the part without ever unlocking that vise.
Okay, so programming this in Mastercam, I think a lot of people have this idea that 4-axis means everything is, spinning wildly all at once.
Yeah, that's a common misconception.
But the sources say there are 2 really distinct ways to do it: indexing and simultaneous.
And this is a huge distinction. I'd say 90% of what people call 4-axis work is just indexing. We call it 3+1.
3+1, because you're just using that 4th axis to position the part.
Correct. You tell the A-axis, rotate to 90 degrees and lock.
And it just holds there.
The brake engages, the machine is rigid again, and then you just run a standard 2D pocket or a Joule cycle, just like a normal 3-axis machine. Then you retract, rotate to 180, lock, and do it again.
And inside Mastercam, you're just using the Planes Manager for this, right? You're not writing some crazy code.
That's the whole workflow. You keep your main coordinate system, your WCS, at the center of rotation, but you just create a new tool plane, or T-plane, for every face you need to cut.
So Mastercam figures out the rotation.
It handles all the math. It's actually, pretty approachable once you get your head around managing those planes.
But then there's the other 10%, the simultaneous stuff.
The scary stuff. Yeah, this is when the brake is off. X, Y, Z, and A are all moving at the same time. The part is actually rotating while the cutter is engaged.
And this is for things like, what, turbine blades or weird organic shapes?
Yeah. Exactly. Turbine blades, feed screws, anything where you can't just cut a flat plane. And this requires a totally different mindset. A multi-axis license in Mastercam,
Right.
and tool paths like Rotary Advanced.
We'll circle back to the dangers there because I want to talk about G93, but first, let's pivot to that other machine.
Okay.
The VMC is the job shop standard. But if you walk into a serious production facility like automotive or aerospace, you see rows of horizontal machining centers, HMCs.
The HMC is a different beast entirely. Physically, it's flipped on its side. The spindle comes out horizontally, parallel to the floor.
Yeah.
And the part sits on what we call a tombstone, a big vertical column.
And since that column is vertical, the rotation is around.
The y-axis. So if you use that right-hand rule again, rotation around y is the b-axis.
So if you hear a machinist talking about the b-axis, you immediately know they're on a horizontal.
You got it.
Now, the source material makes a really interesting point here. It says HMCs are better for high volume, not just because you can put more parts on a tombstone, but because of gravity.
It sounds so simple, doesn't it? But think about chip evacuation.
Okay.
On a vertical mill, you're cutting a deep pocket. Gravity pulls the chips down, right back into the hole you're trying to cut.
So you're constantly recutting your own garbage.
Now, recutting chips is the #1 way to kill a carbide end mill. You get terrible surface finish, heat builds up, tools break. You have to blast high-pressure coolant in there just to get them out of the way.
But on a horizontal.
The part is on its side. Gravity pulls the chips straight down onto the conveyor, away from the cut. It's beautiful.
Huh. So you're not fighting the chips.
Never. And that means you can run faster, your tools last longer, and your surface finishes are like glass because there's no debris getting ground into the wall.
That makes so much sense. It's a physics advantage you just don't think about.
And there's one more production killer the HMC solves. Spindle uptime.
What do you mean?
On a VMC, when the part's done, the machine stops. You open the door, swap the part. That's 5 minutes where the spindle isn't making money.
And HMCs almost always have those pallet changers.
Always. You have 2 pallets. One is inside the machine getting cut. The other is outside with the operator.
So you're loading the next part while the first one is running.
And when the cycle finishes, the door opens, the pallets swap in like 10 seconds, and it's cutting again. The spindle never stops. That's how you make money.
Okay, let's get into the gotchas, the things that cause crashes.
The painful lessons.
The #1 thing that trips up students seems to be clearance. How can you crash a machine by retracting the tool?
It's the retract Z trap. In 3-axis, you're used to writing a line like, G00Z 2.0. Lifts the tool 2 inches straight up. It's safe.
Right.
But in 4-axis, the world moves underneath you.
Okay, give me an example.
Imagine you're machining a 4x4-inch square block. You machine the top face. You retract 2 inches. Seems safe, right?
Yeah, sounds fine.
Now you command an A-axis rotation of 45 degrees. Think about the geometry of that square. The distance from the center to the flat face is 2 inches. But what's distance from the center to the corner?
Oh, it's the hypotenuse. It's longer.
Much longer. As that part rotates, the corner swings up. And if your safe plane's only 2 inches up, that corner's going to swing right up and smash into your tool holder.
Yikes, I can just picture that corner rising up and clipping the tool. That's a terrifying sound.
That happens all the time.
Yeah.
You have to change your thinking from linear clearance to cylindrical clearance.
Okay. And in Mastercam?
In the rotary axis control page, you have to define a safety radius that is bigger than the maximum swing of the part, not just the face you're cutting.
So you have to visualize the part, not as a square, but as the cylinder it creates when it spins.
Spot on. You have to verify that swing circle. If you don't, you're going to have a very, very bad day.
Okay, gotcha #2. This one's a bit deeper. G93 inverse time feed. It sounds like something from a sci-fi movie. What's wrong with a normal feed rate?
The problem is angular versus linear velocity. Let's go back to high school physics. Imagine a record player.
Okay.
You put a penny near the center and a penny on the outside edge. They both do one rotation in the same amount of time.
Right, but the penny on the outside is moving way faster. It has a longer way to go.
Exactly. Now, we usually program our machines in inches per minute, or IPM. We say move it 20 inches per minute.
And that works for X, Y, and Z. An inch is an inch.
But with rotation, 10 degrees is a different distance depending on where you are.
Ah, right. Near the center, 10 degrees is a tiny move. On the outside of a big part, it's a huge move.
Exactly. So if you use a standard feed rate, G94, the machine gets confused. It might whip the part around at 1,000,000 miles an hour, or it might crawl.
And either way, your chip load, the actual bite the tool is taking, is all over the place.
And that snaps tools. If the rotation slows down, the tool just rubs and burns. If it speeds up, it takes too big of a bite, and bang, it's gone.
So G93 fixes this by thinking in time.
Yes, G93 basically tells the controller, forget inches per minute. I want you to complete this move in exactly 0.5 seconds. It creates a time contract.
So the controller works backward and figures out how fast to spin everything to hit that time target.
It forces the linear and rotary axes to synchronize perfectly to maintain a constant surface speed.
So the takeaway is,
If you're looking at G-code for a simultaneous part and you don't see G93, stop. Stop the machine. There's something wrong with your post-processor.
that's a critical tip. Okay, final gotcha. And this one seems like the most insidious. The center of rotation.
The silent killer. This is where the simulation can lie to you.
How can the simulation lie?
In Mastercam, your world is perfect. The center of rotation is exactly at XCY0. The part spins perfectly. But on the real machine, nothing is perfect.
Your fixture might be shifted just a tiny bit.
Let's say it's off by just 0.005 of an inch, 0.005.
Okay.
In the 3-axis world, if your offset is off by 5 thou, your part is cut 5 thou to the side. It's a 1-to-1 error. Maybe you can live with it.
But in 4-axis, you're going to rotate it.
Think about it. You cut a feature on the top, it's off by 5 thou to the left. Now you rotate the part 180 degrees to cut the bottom. That 5 thou error has now swung all the way to the other side relative to the spindle.
So you were off 5 thou one way, and now you're off 5 thou the other way.
Which means your total misalignment between the two features is now 10 thousandths, 0.010. You have doubled your error.
Wow. That's brutal. A tiny setup error gets amplified into a scrapped part.
It forces you to be obsessive. You
Yeah.
can't just touch off the side of the vise. You have to use a coaxial indicator or a spindle probe to find the true mechanical center of that rotation. And that must be your G54.
And that has to match what's in Mastercam perfectly.
Perfectly. If your software origin and your machine origin aren't the same, every rotation just adds more and more error.
It really sounds like the whole jump to 4-axis is a change in mindset.
It is.
You stop thinking about just the part, and you have to start thinking about the entire machine's geometry.
That is the defining difference between an operator and a programmer. An operator knows how to clamp the part. A programmer understands that the corner swings higher than the flat, that the feed rate changes with the diameter, and that the center of rotation is the holy grail.
So, for the listener who's sitting in front of Mastercam right now, maybe a little intimidated, where do they start?
Don't try to machine a turbine blade on day one.
Right.
Start with indexing. Get comfortable with the planes manager. Just take a simple block, drill a hole in the top, then create a new plane at A90 and drill a hole on the side.
And just get used to the idea that top isn't always top.
That's the mantra.
Yeah.
Top is relative. Once your brain accepts that the top plane can be facing the side of the room, the rest of it starts to click into place.
And verify your clearance. Check that cylinder.
Always check the cylinder. Use the simulation, but watch it closely during the rotation moves. That's where the crashes hide.
This has been a fantastic look under the hood. It's dense, but it feels like understanding G93 and center of rotation is what gets you hired at the high-end shops.
Absolutely. If you can walk into an interview and explain why you need inverse time feed, you are already in the top 10% of candidates.
I love that. All right, fire up those simulators, check your planes, and watch out for that swinging corner. Thanks for listening to The Deep Dive.
My pleasure.
We'll catch you on the next one.